Thank you, LJ. I actually have a Packer tattoo on the back of my leg.
All
I
right.
just do a Star Wars tattoo on the back of my legs.
My fiance, I gotta show you her tattoo. She's a huge Star Wars fan. Look, take a picture. I'll show her to her when I see her this weekend.
Okay.
All
Yeah, I'll send
right.
it to you.
There we go. I think this is a good spot for the chat right now. So, folks, we are live. I am your host, Dash V, and we have a couple of guests that you are familiar with, and a new one that you're maybe not, but you will be familiar with them by the end of this show. So, Lizzie, want to say hey?
Hi. Hi. Hey, everybody. Meet my newest cute Sonic plushie. I call him Tattoo Sonic.
Oh
As you
my
can see,
goodness.
this is the 60th anniversary Sonic plushie, so Tattoo Sonic, yay!
Holy cow. What's drawn on him? I see like Ultimate
Uh,
Power and other. Is he like a comic book?
I don't know. That's a good question. No, it's just like all the different characters.
Oh yeah,
Shadows,
shadows on there
Bluebird.
we can see.
Yeah, see?
That's pretty
That's really
cool.
cool. It's pretty cool. It's like the 60th anniversary. So,
Wow. That's awesome. We got Red Bearded Gamer with us. How you doing, Red?
Wonderful today. Just having my coffee because I couldn't. I had a broke already on my coffee thing.
Oh, wow. You're having your coffee at night? That's kind of
Yeah,
different.
I tried to quit coffee and that lasted the whole 12 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
ooh.
My goodness. Do you want to introduce our friend?
Yes, first I'd like to thank my friend, our mutual friend Joey, for connecting us. But this is BJ, and he is with Blizzard. BJ, you can do your introduction.
Hi, how's it going? Actually, I'm not with Blizzard right now. Sorry. Uh, but yeah, no, I am. My name is BJ Bigley. I'm a recruiter in the video game industry, and I've worked with several different companies throughout the games industry
Yeah.
over my time, and
Including
I'm
Blizzard, right?
currently working with Prime Candidate right now, which is an independent recruiting company, kind of like an agency, I guess, for the games industry. We focus on a lot of different gaming clients, and we fill their jobs. So that's
Nice.
basically what.
And you've worked for actually a handful of these companies over the last decade, right?
That's correct. Most recently, I worked at Cryptic Studios, which they are working on Magic Legends, which is the new
Nice.
Magic MMO that's coming out. They currently have Star Trek Online. They have Neverwinter Online, and yeah, there was another one. Anyway, so yeah, they're working on a lot of MMOs. A lot of them been around for a long time. Magic is the new one that's coming out, so it's
Nice.
actually really exciting. I worked a lot on hiring and filling roles for that game or that team a lot.
That's pretty cool.
So
We're going
yeah,
to talk a little bit about what that means a little bit later in the show, folks. So we're going to talk about a bit about what it's like to recruit talent for video game companies and how that maybe has changed and morphed over the years. But before that, we want to get to know a little bit more about you, BJ. So,
sure.
what's your gaming background? Do you have a gaming background, or is this just kind of like is this a your work life?
I mean, it's work, it's fun, it's passion. I've been in the gaming industry since 1999 when I started officially. Well, my first taste of the industry was about 98,
Hmm.
and I worked for the Game Developers Conference or the GDC, or CGDC actually was the whatever. It was bunch of acronyms, but it was a Computer Game Developers Association that I was working for,
Oh wow,
working on Computer Game Developers Conference. So it's now GDC, but it was CGDC. And so I helped coordinate and put together the event as well as they did a live award show. And so that was my first taste of it coming out of like the TV and film industry. I worked on set. I was an assistant director, so that was like how I came into the games industry.
now
And I,
what did that involve? Being assistant director. What does assistant
uh,
director do?
in the video, in the TV and film industry, you basically work on set and you break down scripts and you handle talent. You move people around. You do scheduling and work with the budget and basically get the whole production online and make sure things are going smoothly, and then make sure you shuffle the talent around to their stops for the day, let's call it, and you basically make sure everything's happening on time, on schedule. And usually the first person in and the last person out.
Oh wow! Oh wow! So was it a fairly well recognized gig, or is it one of those thankless jobs?
Both. Yeah. I mean, some of the people that you work with really appreciate what you do on the production side, but some of the people that you work with take that for granted sometimes. I've
Gotcha.
had people like throw their coffee at me and say that there was no cream or sugar with it, and next time make sure you bring me a napkin and a stirrer or something. Everybody kind of has their quirks, and the biggest thing that I learned in that, it was almost like a service industry, and it's like
Gotcha.
even if you don't think that they would want it, either offer it or bring it,
Gotcha.
and give them the option to say no, especially if you're dealing with like talent,
Yeah.
or a director, or even just somebody in another department, even if it's in,
So it's a courtesy.
wardrobe.
It's a courtesy field, right? Always make sure that you're being courteous, that you're being kind of conscientious and aware, right?
Yeah.
That makes
Trying to
sense.
think about everybody and having a whole like big picture view of the entire production as a group. So
Yeah.
it's very similar to like, and then even before that. So like my first taste when I got out of school, or when I dropped out of school when I was 16, I went to work as a full time as a talent agent in Hollywood. So that was
Wow.
when I started working with talent. So I've come full circle now, working with with staffing and that kind of thing.
So you were aware of this. You were aware of this need to be like uber, kind of. I lost the word for it, but this.
Method networking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you kind of knew the etiquette of working with some of the talent and some of the folks that were involved and things like that,
Yeah.
right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. Well, because I used to manage some people. Like, so as a talent agent, some of the biggest people that I represented, right,
Yeah.
in Hollywood, when our agency was, we had a lot of like the siblings. So we had like Frank Stallone at one point.
Yeah.
My mom was working with Mickey Rooney at one
Oh
point. We
wow.
had Dana Plato, like Kimberly from Different Strokes. Remember her?
No, I remember her. She was also in Night Trap, which is one of my favorite full motion video games. Yeah.
We probably booked her in that game. So I mean, that was yeah. Anyway, so
Nice.
yeah, and
She did
yeah,
fantastic. Games like that were I think too far ahead of their time. It didn't really get appreciated. But now you have other games. Like I just did a stream. I think a couple days ago, in fact, of a game by Wales Interactive called Late Shift, which was fantastic. It went from folks going, "Oh, why are we playing an FMV game?" to like about 5 minutes before the ending, I'm like, "I can get back to racing if you guys want." No, 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 no. We have to see what happens next. So it's
that's cool.
it's kind of come
If you
along
can,
now that the technology has improved. You know.
it's just like a movie. If you can suspend the disbelief, then that's where you have now been trapped, and
Yeah.
you're in.
So
Yeah.
now, tell me a little bit about how is being an agent, right, and working with the talent different than being a recruiter and trying to find the talent.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, we've actually at Prime Candidate been asked to do the agent side, but typically we focus on filling the roles. That's typically what pays the best. And it's like kind of, it's difficult, but it's simple with regard to agenting in the
Hmm.
games industry. We've done some of that. Anyway, um, how it's different, it's like when you're an agent, you kind of have things that like chess pieces, let's call them, right?
Yeah,
Different things for different uses. And
yeah.
as an agent,
Everybody's got kind of
of
maybe
break,
their genre or maybe their shtick that they can kind of bring in or
yeah, basically,
yeah,
and you have as an agent when you work in the town, like they do breakdowns, or at least they did when I was doing it, and it was a service that you pay for, and they send you what all the casting directors need, and it came out on a
yeah,
regular basis. And so, do I have one of them or a couple of
yeah.
them? I'm gonna send them in. Here you go. And then we would process their stuff and send it through. It was a function, right?
Right.
Give them what they're looking
You
for.
need a
So
sexy
people-
dramedy guy? This is the person. You need somebody that's a really creepy stalker type? We got that too. Yeah.
Mostly, yeah. And
Yeah.
do you fit the mold? And now, with regard of that to recruiting in the video game industry, it's almost the same deal. Our clients aren't looking to fill the job with somebody who's a crossover. They want somebody who's a slam dunk, somebody who has done it at a competitor. They're doing the same thing. They're proven on one of the competitor games, that one of the games that they're stealing features from and stuff like that. If you
Borrowing.
you know what I mean. But like,
Uncle Pocho says the stalker type is him. One of our folks in the chat.
but
He's a
those
stalker type if
people-
you need a stalker type in talent recruiting.
I mean, I technically am, I guess, if you think about that, because as a recruiter, that's what I'm supposed to do is creep on profiles. But I'm doing it on LinkedIn on a professional capacity and not
Yeah.
like creeper capacity.
Looking through the windows.
I've done the same. I won't mention the company that I work for on stream just because I don't want anybody to mistake that I'm representing them. So anybody that does know where I work that's caught it on other streams or whatever, nothing that I say represents the company that I work for. They're all my own ideas, opinions, and statements. So,
Nice.
but yeah, I mean, I've been in the same boat, you know, where like you're recruiting and you're looking for talent, and you know, it's an interesting. It is an interesting thing. I've also done small stuff, indie stuff mostly, where I've actually directed and produced some of my own stuff and had to do, you know, casting for talent and stuff like that. But you're right. It is a different skill set, and one, you know, in both senses, you're kind of looking for that right something. But in one case, it's like you already have the ingredients, and you're just trying to figure out what you can make with those ingredients or what the recipes are that are calling for those ingredients. Versus in another case, you're literally saying like, hey, look, I want part of this selection has to bring the ingredients with them, right? Like they have to, there's certain things that we're missing that they have to be able to bring in along with them, and they're never going to bring in exactly what you were looking for, at least not often. Sometimes some pieces will be missing and you'll have to figure out, can I live without those pieces? Sometimes it'll be, they're bringing in pieces we hadn't even thought about, but we really think that we could use and we recognize a place for. And so you end up bringing in, you know, folks from both sides of the spectrum, really, which I think is interesting. It keeps things kind of exciting.
I will tell you that with regard to recruiting, I try and think outside the box. Most of my clients are not open to receiving outside of the box candidates. Sometimes they're cool with it.
Yeah.
And I usually try and do a proper kickoff call with some sort of hiring manager or somebody who I'm going to be fielding resumes with, and ask them how they feel about that kind of stuff. But more often than not, they do not want to pay me to give them anything that is not a slam dunk. And
Right.
kind of like we talked about, a slam dunk as somebody who literally is working for a competitor company doing the same thing. Maybe their title is not exactly
Right.
in line with the role you're trying to fill, but maybe they're a soft step up or
So, for
whatever,
example,
but
if you were recruiting for PUBG, you're not, but just saying, if you were recruiting for PUBG, that particular client might say, give us Fortnite developers. Right? Something like that?
exactly like that. Maybe not. So I will say that I have direct relationship with my friend works at the PUBG in the San Mateo in the North Bay or East Bay,
Yeah.
and San Mateo, not San Mateo, San Ramon, sorry, in the East Bay, and they have this awesome new studio. They're doing some really cool new things. I will say that like I said, my friend is their head of talent, and I have done some stuff with them, and they are doing some cool things. He didn't necessarily ever tell me go after this specific place or whatever, but they are using the same technology to develop their game as far as using the Unreal Engine. So people that work at Epic, Fortnite is an Epic game. So people that work on
Yeah,
that
they're 20
domain
minutes from my
are
house.
Ooh.
absolutely a target. And let's just put it like that.
Right.
Um, but chances are most of those folks don't want to go relocate to the Bay Area right now.
No, they don't.
But yeah,
Yeah, they don't.
it's crazy times right now though with this pandemic going on and everything. A lot of our companies are a little bit more
Has that
open to being.
affected recruiting in a direct way?
Uh, I would say a third of our companies have kind of gotten head shy. I was working a contract with the company and they pulled back. I won't say any names or anything,
Yeah.
but like, um, but they're still doing stuff, but not with me.
Yeah. No, I can definitely understand that. I could see it going in both directions. I could see some companies pulling back and saying, "Hey, let's wait and see." Because especially if you're in a position where you think that some of the talent you might have to pull from outside the pool, right? It's really hard to work through a relocation, probably in general. Much less work through one right now with lockdowns and all that kind of
Uh,
stuff going on.
Nobody's
So
anywhere right now.
yeah,
So if somebody's going to hire you right now, in theory, you're not going to relocate until all this stuff is done and locked up and it's safe to move around the country.
right.
So they're going to work in a remote capacity. I mean, we haven't locked anything like that yet, but that's kind of the thought in this current climate. It's really weird.
Makes
Nobody's
sense.
ever experienced anything like this before. So,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
Jeremy, like one time didn't leave his house for a month, so I think that right?
I mean, I work from home
The
typically.
Packers lost a
So this
game,
is
and we
not
didn't see him like
Oh,
at
yeah.
all.
It's because the Packers lost. I cried for about a month.
this,
It was a preseason
this
game.
is not weird though. You know what I mean? Like for
Yeah,
me, I work from home, so this is like I'm
I
kind
do
of used
too.
to
Yeah,
that kind of. So that stuff doesn't bug me out so much, but I did like so when I was working at Cryptic Studios, they're a wonderful studio and it was a really great like climate there and that kind of thing.
hmm
But they were always about you must be in the building, and if you're not in the building, you're
yeah,
not really a part of our team. If you are, it's not going to be for very long, which is fine. Like
yeah.
they kept me around for a long time like that, and I was very successful remotely. I have no ill words against the way I was treated with all that,
Right.
but their general policy there as a company was that you needed to be inside the building. So kind
We
of
used to be that
jokingly,
way too. Yeah, we definitely used to be that way too. The company that I'm working for, I was actually. There's only a couple exception cases that actually worked remotely. I was one of them, but it was kind of one of those. I'd worked with them for like 4 years before they were like, well, we'd rather you work remotely than not work for us." Um, it was almost like we just don't want to have to be put in a position where we're working against you or you're working against us. So we'll keep you on board, and so we worked something out. But now with this, like 2 Thursdays ago, they said experiment. Y'all try working from home on Thursday, and then we get an email Thursday night, effective immediately. Work from home until further notice.
everybody's working from home
Yeah,
now.
well, they're
Yeah,
Bay Area based, right? So they knew the lockdown, I think, was coming. And sure enough, the
yeah.
very next day it was announced, hey, everybody, don't leave your homes, etc., blah, blah, blah. And so we were kind of a little bit ahead of it. And so 2 weeks in, the company hasn't collapsed. I think something that might be really interesting is how many of these companies that were, we need somebody here, ass in chair, actually become more open maybe to working remotely because they realize our tools are robust enough. There are some challenges, but we can work through those challenges. And I still don't think that you'll have like everybody can work remote, but they might be a lot more open to it than they thought because parents are going to have maybe better daycare situations than what they had before, and the amount of time that they save in the commute could be extra time that they're sleeping or working. So there might be some benefits that now can only be realized actually because of the crisis. So trying to look for the silver lining in the cloud. Maybe this is one of those things where these companies open up a little bit more.
Thank God we have groundwork for that kind of stuff, like VPNs and decent home internet, speeds and that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
most people have a reasonable computer with a webcam that you can do stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
Um, For me, I'm not really about the video chat, although sometimes it helps and that kind of stuff. Like here, like it's good to see and put eyes on it. But
It's
generally
good to see Jeremy. Yeah.
when I do my interviews and that kind of stuff, I'm usually old school, like on the phone, and it's mostly a psychological thing for me.
Gotcha.
So, um,
I was just joking. Both BJ and Lizzie are both fabulous.
BJ, I got a question for you.
go for it.
I've assumed you met a lot of famous people. Have you ever been starstruck by one of them, where you're like, oh, that's Neil Patrick Harris?
I'm not gonna lie. Um, uh, yes, but they're usually like very beautiful, like models that I don't even remember their names. You're just like, oh my god.
I appreciate the
Uh,
honesty.
yeah, no, like I forget her name, but Lorenzo Lamas's wife. And I'm sorry if anybody is watching this but she was like a very famous model, and like I worked on Air America and the TV show,
Yeah.
and it was his TV show, and so they each had a trailer, and I worked as a key PA or whatever for that, and I mean, she was just wow.
I
Oh,
just went to look up who his wife was, and there's like this string of names. I don't know which one it was. So
He was like got six of them.
I was gonna try. I'm like, was it Victoria? Oh, I guess it could have been Michelle, or I guess it could have been. Like, never mind.
This one, I mean, she was, I can't even remember her name, like I said, and I'm sure I even like met her many times and spoke with her
Yeah.
face to face. It was just like,
Right.
It's like,
You're like, you're geeking out. Stop it.
she's, I mean, yeah. Anyway, moving on. What else?
You stirred something up in Joey there, Jeremy, with your
that
mention of
that
NPH.
is BJ's friend actually. That's the one that helped us get BJ on today.
Oh, Joey or Neil Patrick Harris?
Joey is the one that got us.
I was gonna say if BJ knows Neil Patrick Harris, I'm gonna be stalking the hell out of him after this show.
Like,
No, I
woo!
would say one of my coolest buddies that, like, from being a talent agent that I represented, who is super cool, and we were buddies back then, and we're still friends, like socially and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is Scotty Schwartz? Do you know who that is?
No.
Christmas Story. He got his tongue stuck to the flagpole. This is
Oh
probably
my gosh.
That's
He was
awesome. I know.
also in a lot. He was in The Toy. He was the kid from The Toy. He
Oh,
was
wow.
Yeah, there was a couple
That
other
is
ones
awesome.
that were really awesome movies that he did as a kid, but he and I were buddies when I was an agent, and he was one of my clients. He's a super cool guy.
Oh man. Oh man.
Yeah.
I have to not geek out so hard right now because Christmas Story is like one of my favorite movies of all time.
With that, I know. I
So
always wrap.
transition to the gaming. So BJ,
Yeah,
while we're talking off the show, tell us about your experience with Tony Hawk. It's one of your first games in the industry, correct?
that's correct. So we talked about originally when I started like GDC and that kind of stuff. So like that, from there I'll transition, right? So that was like eye-opening to me. That was the Game Developers Conference. So it was a trade show. It was CGDC, the Computer Game Developers Conference. It was computer game show. I went there and there was like a million people. It seemed like, not that many, but a million people. It seemed like, and everybody was there for gaming and like big huge signs and games everywhere. I was like, oh my god, this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
And so at that point, my mom was already a recruiter in the games industry, which is how I got that job. And then how she kind of helped me get a job as a tester, a video game tester, which is like entry level into the gaming industry realistically from a production capacity.
Yeah.
So that's how I started. I got in as a tester, and I was working at Crave. I was the sixth tester
Yeah.
that was hired there.
Which Tony Hawk was
as
this?
1 and 2. I can be found in the credits of number 1. It's actually in my IMDb if you want to go check me. But yeah, so I was a tester on that. Actually, me and my buddy who sat next to me, who I'm still friends with, his name is Richard.
Yeah.
I won't say his last name, but he still works in the gaming industry, and it was another fun story with that is as a recruiter. So we started in games together. We were sitting next to each other. We both oriented on the same day and that kind of stuff. And I have a fun story about our Tony Hawk time. But as a recruiter, most recently at Cryptic, I interviewed his son as a designer.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
And I told him out, and I was like, "Is your dad Richard?" And he goes, "Yeah. How did you know that?" I was like, "Well, I looked you up, and he's my friend, and we grew up, like, I started in the industry with." Really? And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Yeah." And it was cool. Like, and then I hit up his dad on Facebook, and I was like, "Yo, dude, I just interviewed your son." And he was like, "Nuh-uh." It was really cool.
Yeah, huh? And I'm sorry, but the position's been filled.
I mean, I did tell him, I was like, yeah, he's not quite senior enough. He's not going to get hired. But I put in a good word. He's in the system as like a to be hired if we have something better. I mean, I tried. For him. It was not the right fit, but it was a really cool experience. Anyway, back to the Tony Hawk thing. So me and that dude, we started at the same time, and we were both playing. We were testing mostly. So we were working on the Dreamcast version of Tony Hawk 1, and we were working simultaneously to launch, I believe, with the PlayStation version, which was the lead SKU, which was done by Sony.
Right.
And so we had a competition in our test department against the Sony test department on a high score for Tony Hawk 1. It was on our release candidate, each of our release candidates.
Yeah.
And so it was who could do better on the Dreamcast or the Sony. And then I believe they also had an N64 version at the time.
That's my favorite one when I played.
Yeah, there's a Game Boy version as well. I'm like looking online at the images, and I'm like finding like Game Boy versions.
Yeah, I do believe they did port it to that, but it was the first primary SKU of that game was N64, I believe.
Nice.
And anyway, so we all had a competition to do high score, and our test department beat the Sony test department, which is the lead, whatever. And my buddy Richard got the high score, and I got second, and my score still beat the best score in the Sony one. So I got a spot
awesome.
They gave me money.
So at the time, when you're testing this game, did you know this would be one of the games that defines that generation of gaming?
It was the coolest shit ever, dude. I loved working on that game when they gave us new builds, and we were like, woo! And our test manager was like, hey, new Tony Hawk build. Everybody was like, woo!
That's
awesome.
awesome.
It was an amazing game. I'm glad you guys saw it coming too.
A lot of it at the time. So intermittently at the time, I was also working simultaneously on another early game. I don't remember if it was launched for the for the Dreamcast. It was Draconus, Draconus.
Okay.
Cult of the Worm. It was like a wide open, like magic hack and slash game. It was also made by Treyarch, which was the company that was making Tony Hawk and the Spider-Man games. And so I was working as a primary tester on that game. And so me and one of my buddies were posted up night shift at Treyarch.
Oh, wow.
So I was literally working there through the night. And at the time, the owner, his name was Peter. Once again, last names. But his name was Peter, and he was going through a whole wedding thing at the time and planning a wedding and all this kind of shit. And he was literally crunching, trying to get his game out, like 3 games out the door.
Yeah.
He's a programmer, and I would literally like break shit on his dev kit on his computer and then wake him up on his couch and be like, yo, it's broken. It was super fun. It was a really fun time.
So Joey's asking if there's any hidden secrets in these games that you tested that you know about that like made it into production. These could be Easter eggs, or these could be things like, somebody writes like Bill Bob was here, like in some off geometry thing that you can't see.
I plead the fifth. I have no idea.
There is a bug I did discover, and I can't find it on YouTube or forums on Tony Hawk N64. But I need to do certain things to even get it to work.
Wow, that's incredibly vague.
I can't confirm or deny any weird stuff that may have shipped in the game.
It's a wall breach, so it's something you guys probably would have discovered. But
okay.
2 players with taxi.
That's mean. You can't tell a tester we wouldn't have found a wall breach. That's like
I'll set my N64 up this week and I'll do it. But yeah, it's the taxi cab one. You need 2 players. and you got to put a certain code to start anywhere, and you grind where the truck used to be, and it's right there.
If you put in any kind of cheat codes, all bets are off.
Right.
Okay. I'm just letting you know.
Woo!
It's
That
like,
was literally what they told us.
I think you have to
with
make
any
that.
of our bugs, with any of our bugs that we ever reported, is if there was a cheat code associated with the instigation of finding the bugs, it's like you must reproduce it without the cheat code. If you can't do it without
Right.
the cheat code, it's not a bug.
We didn't plan to put a big rig on a Formula One track, so that doesn't count.
But I'll get my A64 out this week, and I'll show you how it works, just so you can see, because it was my favorite, because I got high scores doing it.
I don't doubt you. I don't doubt you. I'm just saying that, like, if you had to put in some kind of wonky code, if it's called a cheat code, then you're in the system, and it's not.
Okay, so
and Jeremy
it has to be found on the vanilla version. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and Jeremy, it might be a bit more exciting for him if he was still getting paid for reporting them and following up on them.
Oh, I like it because I cheated and get high scores and beat everybody. Like, how did you do that, Jeremy? I was like, I don't know. I get the high score and I won though.
Yeah, I will tell you that the Dreamcast was probably my favorite console ever, and the controller was one of my favorites because it was real compact and just kind of worked. I literally have like a tattoo.
Oh my goodness!
Yes.
Video
tattoos.
Yeah, and so the one in the middle is a Dreamcast. And it's a Half-Life controller.
Oh, take it off, my friend.
Yeah, take it off.
Take it off.
Okay.
What in the world? I'm gonna have to upgrade the rating on the channel, but.
Hey, so no, these ones they're instead of guns, right? They're light controllers.
No, that's
right?
awesome, man. That's really cool.
Yeah. Anyway,
so it's safe to say you like gaming. Let's just say that.
Oh, that is amazing. And since you opened the Sega Pandora's box, I have to give it over to Lizzie now so she can ask some follow-up questions.
Well, actually, the first question before we do follow-ups, how has it changed with recruiting?
Over the years.
Yeah, over the years.
Over the years. Yeah, so I would say the biggest change with regard to recruiting is relocation. So back in the day, you'd have a client or a big company that was like, yeah, sure, we have an all-inclusive reload package, no problem. And they would like buy you out of your house and buy you a car and say it was part, they'd lease you a car or whatever, and that was part of your deal. And like, off the hook relocations, like, and now you got to struggle to get like 10, 15K.
Oh wow.
Now I think part of that might be because there's a lot more talent localized to these areas than there used to be before, right?
I will literally have clients tell me, will not reload, will not support a visa, will not.
Yep.
I mean, you have a lot of curriculum a lot of times that you can't tell your candidates, or that are not even legal for your clients to tell you, but they're telling you they're not going to hire those people. Wow. So, like I said, most of my clients are looking for slam dunk people, and literally like direct competitor. You're working on a competitor game. You're either wearing that exact same hat or the next hat underneath it in some slight fashion,
right,
to a step up or something like that.
Well, they usually have pretty tight timelines and stuff like that, right? So they don't really have time to F around, to pardon my French, but they needed to have it done like last week, right? They already sent a screenshot that they said was, it was literally like an artist rendition. Craig Stitt told us about this, right? Like literally you saw an artist rendition of a shot from Ratchet and Clank, but you were told that was in-game graphics from the engine live, right?
But it's not.
And it's not, and they need to go make that. They got like 2 months to make it real.
They have like a vertical slice where it's like a snippet. They got a 1 minute gameplay or something demo where it's functioning.
Yeah.
But I would say that's kind of it is a challenge. Most of that stuff is not. Those aren't a lot of the clients that I work with. Most of the clients that I work with are big. And a lot of the jobs that people come to me to fill are large. So I'm not extremely successful filling entry level positions, and it's not because I'm not good at it. It's because there's not a high need. They don't want to pay me for that.
Yeah,
So
I do see a lot of that where a lot of times what they'll do is they'll open up for internships, and that's how they kind of do the entry level thing. They consider internshipping to be, at least in tech. I'm not saying specifically in games, but I've seen a lot of tech
yeah,
companies say we're going to let interns through, and if we find some promising interns, those are going to be our early recruits. Otherwise, if we're bringing somebody in that's already from out there, we want somebody that's kind of more mature and more established in their tools and
typically
process and everything.
gaming hasn't adopted that. They're not
No?
quite large scale enough to do that. A lot of my clients that I work like when I was at Cryptic, we did not have a internship program, and like we talked about it
Oh, okay. Interesting.
with our HR people, but we were not the capacity to sustain something like that. We may be able to take like one in each department a semester or something like that, or a couple of, like,
Gotcha.
but it wouldn't have been a bad idea. Like we totally should have and could have, and but it never did.
Hmm.
You
Gotcha.
know?
Well, Lizzie, I'm gonna hand it back to you because I know you exhibited some reserve there, but I know you're just dying to ask some Sega Dreamcast related questions or Sega in general. So if you didn't
Yeah.
notice, Lizzie's a little partial to Sega.
I
Well,
I'm about the Dreamcast, so yeah.
yes. So I'm gonna assume that was your favorite console. What's your
Yeah.
favorite game?
So there was like a Sega Extreme Sports game that it was like a extreme winter sports game. It was done by Infogrames, and
Okay, yeah.
it was so cool. They had like bungee jumping and like kite or like windsurfing thing, and it was just the coolest thing. They had these really cool concepts in it, and then like had decent mechanics to make it fun and intriguing. That
Yeah.
was really one of my favorite games on the Dreamcast. Um, I don't know. I worked on some games. I was so at that time hooked on Tony Hawk. That was like that was my shit. Like I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I was just skater as a kid, and my son's a skater now. I actually started skating again with him. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
nice. Now,
Well, what about
go ahead.
the black? Because I've seen it the black Dreamcast console that said like Sega Sports or something on it. Do you have that?
No, but I do have a couple of Dreamcast still. I have them locked up in a box or whatever. But no, the one that my chest was fashioned after was the Half Life edition, which was
Uh-huh.
like gray and orange. It was like sick. I did it the reverse though, just because I felt it looked better on my chest. And yeah, and then my other controllers that I have is I have like the old school,
The NES, yeah.
and then this one is a scuffed PS4, and then two PS2 light guns.
That's
So
awesome. So with the PS4 thing, that was a pretty recent tattoo then, or what did it build over time?
No, the whole thing. I got it all done together. One, I mean, not it was a several sittings. I swear it sucked so very bad too, but yeah. I don't know. I think I had like four, 5 sittings on it, and
Yeah.
each one was probably a good 6 to 8 hours.
oh
Now
wow.
I gotta ask. I gotta ask, right? I apologize.
Mhm.
You don't have to answer. Are any of the controller buttons on your nipple?
So no, there is no ink on my nipples, either of
Okay.
them. Thank
All
you for
right.
asking. But the reason I laugh is because my tattoo artist kept joking about like winging a nipple. He's like,
Make
"Oh,
one
I'm
of them
just
like
gonna
the
bend."
B button, you know? Like
I mean, no, that's
The B button.
so it's very sensitive skin, and I would not
right.
recommend a tattoo there if you don't have to.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was kind of I mean, there's just so many directions you could go with that with the misses,
Yeah.
right?
And then I will say that my two most latest tattoos are super nerdy Star Wars tattoos, and they're both one's a Boba Fett popsicle stick,
Oh,
and yeah, because Boba Fett is my spirit animal with regard to Star Wars, because he's a headhunter, and so am I.
Oh wow.
No dead bodies on my side. I want them kicking and screaming. Just kidding.
So,
And then
oh, go
and
ahead.
then the other one that I have is a Mandalorian. It's like a Yoda head silhouette with a Mandalorian and a baby Yoda inside.
Oh
So
wow.
that's wow.
That's pretty
Dirty,
fun.
right?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
fun. No, that's you know what nerdy is in now, so it's okay. It's not like when we were kids and stuff, you'd get like all kinds of
Beat up
flack
that.
for that. But now it's just like
People are like, that's cool.
yeah, no better way to find your future bride or husband than be like, hey, I love Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Or I love Mega Man, or whatever the case may be.
I taught my girls how to play Magic the Gathering, and they're into the card game, and like, they're 10 and 11 now, and they
Yeah,
can like wipe the floor with you in Magic.
I'm sure they can. I'm not. I haven't. I'm getting into some of the tabletop games and the different variants of it, but I am not. That doesn't mean that I'm good at it. So there's
Yeah,
one
no,
more.
I'm not good either.
There's one more thing that I kind of wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap. I know that you've got a tight
That's
timetable here, so
we're doing okay.
but I'm showing it already to folks on the on the screen right now. So ATV Off Road Fury Blazing Trails, right? You were a producer on that game, if I understand your LinkedIn correctly.
That was the last game that I worked on from a production capacity,
Yeah.
technically.
So I was wondering
Um,
if you could tell us a little bit about that experience and if that experience kind of inspired you to transition more to like sourcing, talent and stuff like that, or if it was just a, you
it
know,
totally made me want to work from home and not deal with anybody ever again. No, I'm just kidding.
screw you
I mean,
guys, I'm going home.
that's what happened, kind of. No, so it was actually a strange occurrence. So that whole experience was kind of crazy. It was a launch title for the original PSP. Um, it that whole console was like behind schedule, and dev kits weren't available, and it was crazy. We had a super small dev team. The company that I worked at was a big company, but our actual team was real small. When I got hired, there was some really funky stuff that like the producer that I replaced was let go for misappropriation of funds because he was dating our publishing producer,
Oh my
and
goodness.
lots of drama. It was a really scary experience from that kind of like drama capacity because I'm not about that.
Yeah.
But the
So
game
you
itself,
kind of came into that project, and it sounds like you kind of came into that project like, dude, this thing's going to hell in the handbasket. Try to save it.
kinda, that was kind of what happened. I tried to, keep it together. We ended up shipping it. If it wasn't for our engineering team, realistically, it wouldn't have happened. We had like a couple of really awesome senior lead engineer type folks, and they they were awesome. It was crazy. Like literally, the night we shipped, the biggest bug was like a weird collision thing with like interactives, like the things on the sides, like the pylons on the sides, or like the little cone thingies and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So they would like trip you up and make you like full on crash, and it was some weird frame rate dependent, funky, weird, wonky thing. So
Well, the
all
PSP, right? The PSP was less powerful than, I mean, it was almost comparable to a
it was
PlayStation 1, but still not quite. And the small form factor, it's not like you had a lot of space on these things. It's you still, even if you had the power, the battery, right, was
USB
dependent.
was a really weird disc. It had a decent capacity, but the speed for accessing the disc was weird.
Yeah.
With as far like it didn't go quick enough to hold. Like there was some weird read to write to stuff, and like cache issues as far as like this was a challenge really early on as well.
Yeah.
Like when you're pioneering a launch title and you don't have the right stuff to test it early on and stuff like that. So um, that was a challenge. But like I said, night before we shipped, our lead engineer, our senior engineer, who we had on loan from UK, literally switched all the collidable or physics stuff, collidable stuff, to now being immovable objects. Didn't talk to anybody.
Oh.
And that was our ship candidate. Nobody knew that shit. It was like
Yeah.
nobody knew that. It just that was the final, and that's how it went.
Oh
It
wow.
went from being able to hit shit and like send a little squishy thing on the side flying and causing collision all about or this way to mess
Yeah.
other people up, and that was messing the whole game up. So
Right.
he made a quick fix and said, okay, this stuff is now not. If you collide, it makes you crash. It doesn't move. It's still got the physics, the collide physics, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Gotcha.
And that kind of saved the day and made us able to shift. I mean, there were a couple other things too that he did, but that was like the biggest thing. And
So we got an answer to somebody else's. We got an answer to somebody. I think it was Joey's question there. Did you know of anything that was in these games or kind of hidden in these games? ATV Off Road Fury looks like there was some intention there for some more mayhem in the physics, but it didn't quite. It was a little bit more than the PSP could handle.
it screwed things up. Yeah. It
Gotcha.
made things go boom.
Interesting. Well, speaking of making things go boom, I think your house is gonna go boom pretty soon, right? Because you got some dinner going on, right?
I mean, I'm gonna have to. I've got 3 young children that we're all on lockdown here, and yep,
Well,
that's how it is, man. The homeschooling thing. I actually had my youngest daughter. My girls, I can hear them arguing in the other room. But I had my
yeah,
youngest daughter. My mom got one of those like 3D pen thingies that makes like colored plastic art.
yeah, yeah.
And my come here. You can come here. This show is my daughter.
Oh,
She
that
was-
looks lovely.
She
I
made
made it for my mom.
a
I
heart
was
purse.
I was gonna make yours next.
Okay.
like
At least you didn't make me poop like you were.
Look at that, folks. Arts and crafts at home. That's pretty fun. Are you having fun at home?
This is what lockdown brings.
And Dad, look, if you look carefully, once I changed colors, a little bit of that
I
color
see
stays
that.
in it.
That's neat.
See
All right,
this.
all right. Show me later. Thank you.
That's pretty
Thanks for
neat.
showing.
That's pretty neat.
It's pretty
So
cool.
three younger kids, right?
That's my youngest. She's
Yeah.
she's 10, and then I have a 11-year-old daughter who you saw earlier.
Yeah.
And then I have a 14-year-old son who, as I said, he's into skateboarding. So that was
Oh,
really
wow.
cool. Like me, and when he was like, "Yeah, Dad, I want to start skateboarding," I was like, "Oh." It's like, yeah. He actually asked me the other day. He goes, "Hey, can you help me build a grind box when we're on lockdown?" I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm in."
Well, give me like 2 seconds because I gotta grab something, and we're gonna close down. But there's something that I think you're gonna want to see. Jeremy and Lizzie, you can fight it out for final question. I'll be right back.
Lizzie, you can go ahead.
Okay. Do you like Sonic?
I love Sonic. Actually, my favorite version of Sonic that I really got into was the Sega Game Gear version. And so
Okay.
I had the old school like Game Gear. I had the old
What
school
color?
the Game Gear that I had. Oh shoot. The Game Gear that I had was gray. It was like I believe the original one. And that was one of my favorite handheld consoles that I had.
Okay, we'll follow up for that one. Are you going to see the movie or have you seen the movie?
I have not yet.
Dang it!
It's
I
worth
know.
it. It's worth it if you can grab
It's
it
on
on.
digital today. It got released today.
It's on digital today.
Is it on Netflix? Is it on Netflix or
I
Disney?
don't know. I have it on Amazon Prime, so I'm gonna go watch it later. Oh my god.
So I don't have Prime. I do have the Disney Plus. I got sucked into. I've got kids,
Yeah.
and then I've got Netflix.
It'll probably also hit Vudu if you have anything like Vudu or whatever. But I can definitely
Hulu.
say,
Yeah.
for it's definitely a good family movie. Definitely a
Got it.
good family movie. So,
I
but
think my kids may have seen it with their mom.
my friend.
Ooh.
So
That's-
this is a Tomb Raider reboot longboard, right?
Nice.
Actually, I don't know how do I get it on the screen here. So you can't quite read it on the camera, but this was actually given as a completion gift to the developers of the Tomb Raider reboot. As a, you know how usually they'll do like the whole like, oh, you finished the game on time, here's your bonus, etc. They actually they actually gave all the developers their own custom longboard. And so there's only, I think, like 23 or 28 of these in existence with this exact print and the name of all the developers and everything that made it. And so this one here, there's a slight misprint in one spot. There's like one row of pixels. I can't even find it here.
Who did you need to get?
So here's the deal. There's like one row of pixels. You can kind of see it.
I can't.
Right there by the leg, right there.
Move back to the.
Whichever way.
Yeah, go this way.
More.
This way.
Right here.
The other way.
Side. Can't see.
Okay.
Keep going.
There you go.
There you go.
Right there in her knee.
Oh yeah.
Slight misprint there. So because of that, the guy kind of noticed it that they gave it to, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not complaining or anything." They're like, no, man, we'll get you another one. So he gave this one to his friend, and his friend sold it to me on Craigslist.
That's cool.
So, but
so you didn't have to date anybody.
I did not have to date anybody. No, I stay up way too late on Craigslist sometimes, and I saw that.
I have to tell you the coolest thing. So you guys talked about Blizzard early on, right? Mm-hmm. So I did interview at Blizzard a while back after I worked at Magic Leap. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you know what Magic Leap is, but
I do, absolutely do. Yeah.
So yeah, I worked there for a little bit, and when I got let go from there, Blizzard brought me in for an interview. I did not get hired, but it was a really cool experience. But the really far back in the day when I worked at Mass Media as a producer designer, so that was a really cool experience at Mass Media. I worked on games like Pac-Man Fever, which was a party game, and Shrek Super Party, which was also a party game, and Muppet Party Cruise, which is also a party game, all kind of fashioned after like Mario Party and that kind of stuff with board game and games and that kind of stuff. So I did like design and that kind of stuff as well as production for those games. And so, we at Mass Media were working on, what was it? It was their game with the girl from the StarCraft universe, Nina. I forget what it was called. Anyway, so because we were working with them, we got like alpha passes to work or to play WoW and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was like back in the day, like when it was early, like Family and Friends alpha and stuff.
Right.
And we also got invited to their Christmas party one year, and because I was a producer, I got to go, and we went to the Christmas party at Blizzard. It was so cool. They gave out the coolest like you work here for 10 years or whatever. They gave out like swords and battle axes or something. It was the coolest shit. I was like, I want to work in a place like this.
Oh yeah. So
that was just my, yeah.
Well, BJ, thank you so much. I'm sure those little ones are just waiting for food. So.
Yep. Thank you for playing along. It was nice meeting you guys.
It was absolutely great having you on. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you again, Joey, for connecting us.
Yeah, thank you to the folks in the chat. Tio is going to be out there. Tio wants you to know that if you ever need to place a stalker, he's your guy.
I will tell you guys just one plug for me and my company.
Sure, go right ahead.
If there are any qualified game industry individuals watching this or whatever, and you actually like have games experience and that kind of stuff, and you are right for jobs at some of our clients, like I'm open to interacting with you. If you have a LinkedIn account and you're relevant, if you're just into it and you're like a fanboy or girl or whatever, and you're real excited about it, I can't really help you break into the industry. But once you have experience, I am totally willing to help you. Even if you don't have experience,
does indie studio experience count? Like if they've made an indie game that actually has listed that they've actually made sales on and that kind of thing?
So I'm not gonna lie, that's like most of my clients are probably not real interested in that unless it's like if it's like a highly respected indie game, maybe, right? But they're gonna want to see like maybe that you had a degree and now you're following the indie path, and like that you still go to like game jams and stuff and build cool shit, and like you're really passionate about it. Maybe they'll give you a shot.
Gotcha.
And that's really the way you got to look at it is
Yeah.
like you have to find a way to stand out in this climate and make yourself relevant to what they're looking for. If you're not exactly what they want in the job description and you need to read between the lines, you need to be like, well, this company does or does not want this experience or whatever. If they are a mobile game company and they're working on match 3 games, that's the experience they want to see, or something
Gotcha.
relevant. You know, if
Yeah, makes
they're
sense.
working on a first-person shooter game or a third-person adventure game, they likely want to see somebody with at least some experience in a relevant game in that market. And if you don't, they're likely not going to hire you. And I mean,
Makes
that's
sense.
just basic common sense, right?
Yep.
If you don't use that sense when you're submitting yourself for jobs online, you're almost wasting your time and kind of making a fool of yourself if you really are not relevant. Sorry. But
No,
it's
that
real.
makes perfect sense. So I think we can drop a link to some stuff. Is there a link that I can share a little bit later? And if folks that
There is. So the company that I run as a recruiter, it's a video game industry staffing company. It's called
Yep.
Prime Candidate Inc. PrimeCandidateinc.com. So the company itself has been around for over 20 years. We only do recruiting in the video game industry. I am second generation game industry recruiter.
nice,
Cool.
very nice. Well, thank you very much, BJ. I think we're gonna say sayonara to YouTube. So I'm gonna